welcome to Rising. It is Wednesday morning, and we've been enjoying just every moment of the week so far, don't you think?
We really have. It feels as fresh as a Monday.
How about that? What on earth are we talking about today?
Well, Robby, yesterday, Ohio voters rejected a ballot measure that would have made it more difficult for the legislature to amend the state's constitution. Per the Associated Press, the defeat of Issue 1 on Tuesday keeps in place a simple majority threshold for passing future constitutional amendments, rather than the 60% supermajority that was proposed. In November, Ohioans will weigh in on a referendum enshrining access to abortion as a right in the state's constitution. With Issue 1 on the cutting room floor, only a simple majority of voters will be needed to vote yes to pass it.
This purported alleged defeat for the pro-life movement has some analysts calling out the GOP's electoral strategy. Political analyst Patrick T. Brown tweeted, quote, "The Ohio result tonight, coming on the heels of the shellacking in Michigan and the unexpected loss in Kentucky, needs to be a 5-alarm fire for the pro-life movement." Meanwhile, over on the Republican side of things, failed gubernatorial candidate Kari took to Twitter to allege the ballot measure in Ohio was rigged, which is, of course, false. It's a familiar refrain from the Kari Lake, who might run for president despite being governor and senator and mayor in her own head or something.
I wonder what she'll say if she loses. Look, I'm increasingly of the opinion that if Joe Biden is the candidate in 2024 and wins, it will be substantially, overwhelmingly, simply because Republicans were the dog that caught the car on the abortion issue.
The interesting thing, though, about this Ohio issue that failed is that while it was put forth by pro-life Republican conservatives as an effort to prevent protections for abortions, it would have applied to any ballot issue. So while I'm perfectly willing to believe that people rejected it for abortion reasons, you could have voted against this theoretically, even if you are pro-life and want there to be restrictions on abortion. You could have just thought that raising the threshold for a ballot initiative to pass is a bad idea. I mean, conservatives could have made that argument too. There are things that they like sometimes that, like, if affirmative action gets banned by ballot initiatives,
sure.
Sometimes you want a 60% threshold for that. Why,
sure.
Medical marijuana gets legalized through ballot initiatives. There's a lot. I mean, there are wins for the left and right in the ballot initiative setup. What politicians, many of those kinds of interests don't like ballot initiatives because it gets around, it lets the people actually decide directly. I'm a big proponent of them, really. So I would have, I would have been very against this just for even on the question of making it more difficult to pass ballot initiatives.
Sure, it's kind of like imposing a sort of filibuster for the state that makes it more difficult to change rules. But in effect, in actuality, Republicans as a party were framing this as both a anti-abortion move, and also they were sending out flyers and framing this as an anti-trans issue. Aaron Reed, who's been a guest on this show, was sharing some of the materials that the Republicans had been circulating in the state, trying to get people to say that if you are anti-trans, whatever, being taught in school, et cetera, then this is something that you should vote yes on. Moreover, I really do think that there is an important introspection that the Republican Party is going to have to go through. Donald Trump, the party's leader, has been more insightful than most on this issue. If you know that even conservative women are overwhelmingly supportive, I won't say overwhelmingly, but are supportive of maintaining the right to choose. And you've seen over and over again in Kansas, now in Ohio, in midterms, ballot initiatives that are squarely on the issue of choice being such a motivator in a race that is really going to depend on turnout. What do you do when there's a part of your party that is insisting that we need to have earlier and earlier abortion bans, that are still talking about things like national abortion bans? Not to mention just the fact of Roe being overturned has made so many people feel insecure about this issue. Is there any way to put this genie back in the bottle?
Well, yeah, they should stop talking, and people who bring it up should absolutely shut up about a national abortion ban, and it should be, we're going to let states decide, and different majorities are going to have set different limits, or some will have none, and some will have stricter limits depending on the political makeup, the alignment of the state, and it's going to be different in every place, and we should not seek a one-size-fits-all national policy because that will blow up in our faces.
Well, we're seeing
Seems
even
pretty obvious to
on
do
a
that.
state level, in states, people are pointing out that Trump won Ohio, even in states that where the majority of the population does seem to support the conservative candidate, or at least Donald Trump. They still do not support restrictions on abortion rights.
Well, they support some restrictions.
They don't support a ban on
ban.
abortion rights.
Sure.
And they, in fact, seem to, at least in the case of Ohio, support a constitutional amendment that would prevent any further restrictions on abortion rights. So that really does seem to be putting the Republican Party in a tough place. It's also an interesting question for leftists who have been trying to make the dissatisfaction with Biden an opportunity to advance the interests of left populism. If Joe Biden is right that he can basically coerce a win out of the public simply because they feel so strongly about protecting the right to choose, regardless of the rest of his policy platform, what does it mean for all of those other issues that leftists have been fighting for that are in fact also popular on a populist basis, like healthcare, living wage, labor rights, et cetera?
I saw a advertisement online in Ohio that was geared toward this issue. That was it's a couple in the bedroom together, and then a Republican legislator, a generic Republican legislator, appears and takes away their birth control, and they say you have to vote no on this or you're going to lose your birth control. So there was probably some very effective scaremongering going on related to this.
Well, you say that like we didn't have to have the Supreme Court overturn any number of laws that really did ban birth control and ban gay relationships and all kinds of things all over the country, in the conservative parts of the country. Those laws really did exist and were on the books. Lawrence and on these kind of cases were landmark civil rights cases precisely because there historically have been laws in the books like that, and people are very concerned the Republicans are moving back in that direction. They have said openly that they're moving back in the direction. And by the way, there was this internal in Ohio debate about whether or not the movement, the kind of liberal movement to prevent this ballot initiative was being fueled by outside money and was from kind of coastal activists, and that was a large part of the conservative narrative, where apparently about three-quarters of the $4 million that were raised to promote the ballot initiative were also from outside the state. So we do talk a lot about this idea of it being states' rights, but given the enormous influence of outside state lobbying groups, these national lobbying groups, and the effect that they can have on local elections. We've seen this particularly in elections against progressives, where groups like DMFI, these super PACs, pouring millions of dollars into races to prevent leftists who have pro-Palestinian politics from getting elected has been determinative on almost every case. I think Summer Lee is one of the few examples of someone who was able to survive despite those kinds of challenges. It really does call into question, I think, this idea that we really do have autonomy in states to express local preferences. And again, money and politics, corporate money and politics is a pernicious root of even what is perceived to be a very conservative preference, an idea, states' rights.
Leftists can't win because people keep running campaigns against them. Oh no. I mean, that calls into question the project, but.
And not campaign finance reform issues?
Campaign finance is just speech. It's just speech.
All right, well, we'll have more conversations about what else constitutes speech, even trying to overturn the results of election. More rising after this.